Welcome to the Future of Parenting Summit. I am your host, Dr. Cheryl Kam, the founder of the Vibrant Life Academy. I'm pleased to announce that this experience is sponsored by the Sleep Lab. Remember to use this code CHILLMOM to enjoy 15% off your first order.
Welcome everyone to the Future of Parenting Summit. I am your host, Dr. Cheryl Kam, and I'm very happy to bring to you today Becca and Sari. And together they form Radical Learning. All the links are below. They are actually youth rights advocates, which brings them into the work of being parent trainers and trainers of facilitators who work in the child education space and who work with youths as well. And they've got a podcast. You can go on and listen to them as well and read their very eclectic experience and what they do as well. So thank you, Becca and Sari, for being with me today.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So, we're talking about really what attracted me to your profiles is how you guys are so so radical, actually, which is in your name already, about how learning and education and relationships with children can be done. Especially with your content coming out on social media as well. You kind of like don't mince your words with things, and it's really powerful. I love it. Love it. So I feel that this is going to bring us a lot of perspective over here, wherever in the world that everybody is. We all want a better relationship with our children, right? We want to see that there is ease in it, and there is a way out of any kind of situation that blocks the love that flows between the child and the parent. Kind of we're sort of talking about being able to trust and gain have a good relationship with our children, young and old, and teens as well. You've been working in this space for so long. What are the common things that you see in your work right now? What are the things that people are coming to you with in your work right now in this modern age of parenting?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a juicy one.
Start.
Yeah, sure. So I think that what we both noticed, Sadi and I, is how extremely far away we are from our nature as humans, as mammals, as part of this, like, beings that inhabit this planet. And it seems to me that, we've just come really almost gone astray. So it feels like as if the lives that we're living and the way that we're bringing up our children isn't really in alignment with who they are, with who they could be, their potential. And there's no room for trusting that inner configuration with which we believe that all humans are born. And so I think that what we see most of the time is a lot of adults coming to us with fears, with beliefs, with thoughts that have been imposed on them by society, by how society is structured, by how we are living our lives, and of course also by the school system. And all those beliefs and all those programmings, they really take us very, very far away from our nature as beings of this planet.
Yeah, and I would add, I love how you put it, Cheryl, about a different way. Like we're all here because we're looking for a different way. We're looking for a way out from kind of the chaos and the noise that is stopping us from connecting to one another and having these beautiful relationships. I think the way you put it was like things that get in the way of love, of the love that we have with our kids. And it's really similar to how we look at it. We called our organization Radical Learning because what we're doing is we're going back to the roots. Like what Becca was saying, we're all configured to live, to love, to be in community, to relate to one another in very natural ways. And yet our society has been structured in a way that is really like I would say, decentering relationship. And so, I mean, that's product of capitalism, right? Everyone's like, go, go, go. We got to make money. We got to, produce. We have to, it's all about like success. And what we're trying to do is support parents, adults supporting youth, communities to really come together and focus and center on relationships. So what that means for parents is like, okay, begin to look at a lot of oxidized ways of being and a lot of limiting beliefs that we might have that are rooted in fears that don't even belong to us, many of them. And begin to look at those beliefs and say, oh, why do I believe in this thing that I'm pushing for? Why do I talk to my kids this way? Why am I kind of signing up for this program of life that doesn't quite suit us as a family, as individuals? And that is something that we call a deschooling process. It's not just focused on school. It's really about just questioning a lot of limiting beliefs that we have so that we can center relationship and we can learn different tools and different ways that are actually really natural and at the roots of who we are as human beings. And it really means looking at power structures in our relationships. It means focusing on consent. And it really at the core of it is trust. It's about, why have we come so far from trusting our kids and trusting ourselves? And what does that actually, how does that manifest in our life? And what does that look like? And what are ways that we can change that?
And so I would just like to add that the word radical comes from Latin, the word radix, which means root. So that is why we're using it, but also that it seems to be very radical in our modern era to actually go back to the roots and do what we're doing.
Oh my goodness. I just did not realize the word radical meant root at all. I mean, here we're taking it as something so radical.
Different.
Different,
Yeah.
right? But actually it's where the roots are meant to be. Oh my gosh. Okay, we need to look into the the etymology of that word now. What you said, really resonates and also kind of like brings up a question for me, which is we seem to be preparing our children for society, the pre-existing society and the pre-existing culture that is there that we might not be super 100% happy with, and some people might be 100% happy with, I don't know. But we want our children to, like that whole thing about needing our children to be able to fit in with society and, not to be outcast and basically to fit in, that itself is already a tough choice to make. Like, okay, well, if I'm deschooling, if I'm doing these things that are different from the general population and the general norm, where does my family, where do I stand? Where does my child stand in the future as well by being so deviated and not buying into the masses? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really important topic to bring up because when we try to fit in, we actually lose ourselves. We want to belong. We need to belong. Belonging is a basic human need. But we can never belong by trying to fit in because we lose ourselves. And the only way to really belong is to belong to ourselves, to understand who we are, who our core values are, what we stand for. And I feel that most adults that I work with, including myself, got lost. Growing up, it's like we were something, we had a core when we were kids, but as soon as we got into the system, we were being molded into something where we were supposed to fitting into a mold that wasn't really made for us, because it can't be made for us if it's a mold. It's made for making people look the same, be the same, behave the same, make the same choices. And so actually for me, it's like this huge gap of, okay, maybe I'm fitting in, but I feel completely lost and disconnected from who I am, and I'm not happy.
Yeah, and I think that's where that questioning comes in, right? It's like, fit into what? And for who?
Mhm.
And I mean, there's so many different movements going on that really have the same foundation, which is liberation, right? Which is authenticity, which is like people wanting to really live according to their values, to their beliefs, to their family wisdom, without having imposed ways of living on us. And I think that, you know, I hear you, what you're saying, Cheryl, like this, we see this a lot, this fear of like, well, you know, for example, like neither one of our sons goes to school because we're unschoolers. So part of our questioning has been, you know, questioning the school system and questioning like, why do we send our kids to school when we see that they thrive in their natural day-to-day life and they're learning so much. And so we focus on our relationship and we focus on life being our school. And that was one part of the questioning, right? Was looking at the school system and saying this doesn't quite fit in for us because, you know, like, for example, my son, both of our children are neurodiverse. So then it was like, you know, a system that's going to make them sit at a desk for 8 hours isn't going to quite work for them. So it's like this fitting into this one size fits all doesn't work for everybody. So why do we keep doing it? You know, and that why do we keep doing it? That question really leads to, well, where do all these systems come from? And who's on top of these systems? And where do I want to be in relationship to that? And so a lot of the work we do is about looking at these power dynamics and looking at how much we have put our trust in these systems and in other people that are defining our success, defining who we are, other systems that are doing that for us. And really, it's taken away the trust that we have in ourselves and the trust that we have in our kids. And it's like a reclaiming of sorts. It's like, no, this is my life. This is our life. This is our children's lives. So let's stop. Let's take out the noise and let's really focus on what's important, which is like, hey, how are you doing? Like, who are you? What do you need? What are you into? What do you enjoy? And it's really liberating. And I understand that there's a lot of privilege in that, like being able to step away from a lot of these systems. And I really hope, my hope is that that's not a privilege one day for everybody, that we all have the opportunity to begin to question and make changes in our lives so that we're not the ones that are, you know, the outliners. Like we are the norm. Like,
Correct.
you know, we're redefining what the future looks like.
For more and more and more and more people. It happens to be a small proportion for the minute, but I love to hear that that's where your work is going. And I'd just like to share that, like, you know, it's the same thing with functional medicine and wellness and holistic health. You know, I mean, at the moment, it seems to be like a choice of the privileged, and it obviously then seems to create a gap because obviously the middle and low class are then now like completely out of the picture, and then they're going to have to go into the, you know, mainstream medical system, and that's obviously at face value unfair. But I love to hear that the work is all about homogenizing it in a certain different direction, you know. So yeah, I mean, with unschoolers, deschoolers, and all, it's such a minority, you know. But the purpose of this summit is also for the majority to tap into this minority direction and get a lot of wisdom from it, and to realize and to even just be aware, like, you know, of what we haven't exactly claimed for ourselves yet.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I also think that, you know, when it comes down to it, we're all about how we're treating kids. And you don't have to be an unschooler in order to treat your kids with respect or to become a peaceful parent. It just happens that many times when we go into that direction, we start wondering, if I'm being a peaceful parent, how come my kid isn't being met with respect and a peaceful attitude at school? And that's where many times people start questioning things.
Yeah, we talk a lot about that. I mean, our personal journeys, we came to where we're at right now through a lot of different avenues. Like for me, it was my home birth. It was my pregnancy. Like that was what kind of like scratched the surface, where I was pregnant and I was like, oh, you mean I don't have to give birth in a hospital? Oh, I can have a home birth? Oh, but this, and that led me into this path of, again, questioning. So I think everybody who's listening to this is probably questioning some aspect of their lives, right? Like, oh, non-traditional medicine, like that's really cool. That resonates with my being. And then it continues and it continues. And so we find that a lot of times folks will come to us through the peaceful parenting kind of avenue. And that's why people are like, you guys do everything. And it's like, yeah, because it's all related, right? Like, once you start questioning the birthing world and then parenting and then, health and, then education and like all the systems at play are all linked. So when people say, well, I want to be a more peaceful parent, then, you start developing tools to really connect with your young people. And then you start questioning what environments they're in and how they're supported or not supported in those environments based on the tools that people around them use in those environments. And so it's kind of like this unfolding. It's very layered, and I think everybody's process is so personal and different. But I think what unites us all is, again, that idea of like, we really want to be happy, we really want to be free, we really want to be healthy and have healthy relationships. And for us, like, what that means is we need to trust in ourselves, our configuration, in our kids, and we need to focus on the relationships. So, if our kids are not thriving in conventional schools, begin questioning, like, well, why am I sending them then? What's important? Is it really important that they like complete that homework packet by the end of week 2? And is that going to define like who they are and who they're going to be in the future? Or is this human in front of me, do they have interest and skills and passions that I can support to flourish and, outside of the system? And not everybody can take their kids out of school, and we recognize that, but you can still center a relationship and you can still connect with your kids even in the system in ways that are really supporting them to thrive and to be seen and to be heard.
Absolutely. I like that, there's so much to learn from the unschooling and the homeschool community, the peaceful parenting community, that you can bring in anyway in whatever situation that you're at. But one thing that struck me as well is that, when you're trying to help your child to fully express themselves or be fulfilled and so on, I know for a fact that this is going to be a transformational journey, and you've got to be in for it as the parent as well. I mean, the first person that kind of needs to transform is us, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that what happens many times is that adults, we try to control our kids. We want them to change. We have, we have different needs, and we want our kids to meet those needs immediately. We need to leave on time. We need to get ready. You need to, set the table or do the dishes or like do your share. But we don't understand that it's not about trying to control or change our kids. It's about controlling and changing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you work with parents and facilitators and all that, I can imagine the conversation, or the journey at least, like kind of really hitting when it's like, oh, it's all about me, actually.
Yeah. And I think, going back to that first question that you asked, like, what do we see? We see that a lot. We see that there are even parents that have been practicing conscious, peaceful parenting for years. And, we host these ALC immersions and these in-person trainings. And it's really there that we kind of, like, I don't know, you see that the unlayering, the unraveling of the onion, where it's like, okay, maybe people are using these tools. Like, I'm saying this really conscious, amazing, peaceful thing, but I'm doing something totally different. And I'm viewing my young person through this lens of adultism, through this lens that I am the adult and therefore I know better. And therefore, my actions are going to define how I treat this human. And there's so much like that we need to unlearn from that. And it's a process. But yeah, it always comes back to parents and their willingness and readiness and openness to do the work of unpacking and looking at our oxidized beliefs and trying something new. Like that, which is, I think, the hardest part, because in theory it sounds great, but then actually putting it into practice and saying, you know what, instead of losing it on my kid, I'm going to just pause. I'm going to walk that way for 5 minutes, and I'm going to like do some things, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to apologize, and just that is like groundbreaking for some people, but not everybody wants to do that work or is willing to do that work, because it's really comfortable. It's really comfortable not have to. So it is a journey, and it is about, I think, it's a lot of it is about adults, looking at our behaviors and understanding, understanding that there's so much beneath what we see and what we do. Also,
I feel like it's like a massive personal development route. It's like parenting is one of the inroads. There can be so many inroads, like an emotional health breakdown or a health breakdown or something. And parenting is like just the quickest inroad to like, okay, we're gonna have to look at ourselves now, especially when the kid turns like 3 or something,
Yeah, it never ends. It's like constant. And I think as our kids age, the journey gets more and more complex almost. I don't know.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I mean, more interesting. I mean, you have a 17-year-old.
Yeah, no, I think it gets better. I really enjoy so much more having a teen because, well, the cognitive development, the intellect, where we can actually have discussions and we can talk things through and there's an understanding, it's different, but I understand also that if you're a parent that has if it's a parent that hasn't done that previous work, then teens is going to be a hard thing for them to manage. And it's not for me to say, give up them, on the contrary, it's never too late to start, never too late to put the relationship first and start questioning why you're doing or why you've been doing what you've been doing and start changing it. You can always do that. And then it's more like up to our kids to start trusting us. Can they trust us? And show them that we are trustworthy. And it's really through trust that we will be able to develop these relationships where we can come together as humans and have these conversations and find solutions that work for all instead of a solution that works for me as an adult, imposing something or forcing my kid to do something.
I love that you say it's never too late because, we've met so many through this work in the Parenting Summit as well. We've met so many people who are like, grandmothers and grandparents who were like, I wish I knew this early on because I didn't bring my child up in this kind of way, And, in my personal story as well, I have kind of the dynamic of the relationship with my own parents has also changed. So it may not, just, I guess for us to cut some slack and say, hey, life is kind of long. It's short, but long also. It really, really isn't too late to say like, oh, I'm sorry. And I really did my best and whatnot. Like even adult parents to adult kids.
Absolutely. I've seen 70 plus humans make that change and transform their family relationships.
I mean, it's happened in my family, like the way that I'm raising my young person is very different than how I was raised. And in the beginning, when I started doing this work, of course, there's like anger and things that come up. And I remember my dad was like, hey, I'm kind of feeling hurt right now, like in our podcasts and stuff. I was like, I've shared some things with his consent as well, but I don't think he was expecting to hear some of the things. And he's like, ouch, like that hurt. And he's like, but I really needed to hear that. Like, thank you, and I think by me doing things differently, because also you don't know what you don't know, right? Yeah. Like, and so I don't think that it's not about like, it's not dogma, right? Like, it's not about like, this is the way to do it. And all those other ways are bad and different. It's just things are changing. Times are changing. And now we're at this impasse in our existence where we have an opportunity to kind of shift things and focus more on relationships again. And I think that by me doing that work and my son also learning how to communicate in a different way, like it's transforming my family and shifting how many members of my family are interacting with one another. And that's been really surprising, actually. Like I didn't expect that. And I know that that's not the case for every family member. but there's opportunity in there to heal. Like there's generational healing that I think takes place when we're open to the process and we're open to sharing our process with those in our lives, not just like hiding it. And, it's not like coveted. It's like, this is what I'm going through. I want to share with you these tools. I want to share with you these, understandings. Like, this is how I communicate with my son. And sometimes people will be like, oh, wow, like that worked.
Yeah. Because you've
like I learned
modeled it. Yeah.
Becca and her son Teo, who's 17, and their relationship is super inspiring. So that I know when when Sai's a teen, I have that modeling. Like, okay, I know, I see this other way of doing it, because I wasn't like that all the time. I remember what it was like.
Oh, I mean, I can definitely see how there are community-wide like impacts and things. Like when I go and hang out with my friends, and we go for forest walks and stuff, I'm always learning from the aunties and the other moms that are there at different journeys and different parts of their parenting journey as well. And it's the modeling that helps you. It's not the books that you read and kind of it's all there in your brain. It's how you see someone else be, right? Yeah. And so I totally see the point that you guys are running like face-to-face. A lot of your workshops and everything are on site, right, rather than online, or you have like, is it 50-50 at the moment, or what?
Yeah, right now we're kind of shifting. We've done a lot of in-person programming, and now we're building an online platform, which we're super excited about, because there's a larger community than we think, of people that are
it's growing as well
differently. And so online seems to be a really great way to connect with a lot more people. So in 2023, we're launching an online platform and taking a little pause from the in-person, but we'll be back in person and maybe do some traveling and bring our in-person trainings to communities, that are open for it. And then also just doing our own connecting with our families too. That's always inspiration. So yeah, we kind of do both in person and online.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the point I'm making here is that the community is important. So, so much more important than just the reading of the one book. So whether the community is online, and online you can write out scenarios, right? And then in person, it's a little bit easier because you just be and you just model as the situation arises, that sort of thing, without having to kind of necessarily write out the scenario unless you're reflecting and doing some reflection work on it. But yeah, the community and is wonderful, and also and online. Online is just helping us so much now, like never before. That actually, when I say community, actually it's online and offline, and for such a niche topic, and I'll call it niche. It actually is niche. Then online and worldwide is like actually very, very. It's such a big network now.
Yeah, and I think it's really necessary. The fact that you're mentioning community, because making these decisions and choosing a different path, if it is parenting or education or both, requires so much courage. And many times people are really lonely. It might be hard for them to find others that are like-minded. And I think that is like really one of the biggest reasons why we are doing this online as well, because we want people to know that they're not alone. There is support to get, and there are others to connect with on the same path.
Yeah, and this is actually the quickest way to break out of cultural norms in a way, because all you need is one seed in a prevailing culture of toxicity, say, that can really change things, right? So powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm it's a big one as well. I mean, in my realm of health as well, it's not easy to take radical changes and make radical changes for your health, because everyone's not really doing the same thing, and burnout is such a norm, but yeah, I mean, the community is actually here to support that. Hey, we're thinking differently, we're thinking more aware, and here are some of the people who are doing that as well, so you can be positively influenced.
Yeah, and I really appreciate, Cheryl, like how holistic your work is, because again, it's all connected, like our health and our relationships and our environment, and I do see a future that is holds more space for that way of thinking, for a more holistic approach to life. It's
like exactly what you said earlier about the onions and the layers. and how you uncover, like for you, your journey was realizing that you had choices in your birth. You had birth choices. And you could say no to things like examination, unneeded examinations and things like that, right? Even that is like such a oh my God. But then these oh my God moments can actually kind of happen in so many other areas of your life, which I feel like for you it has. And then it starts to open up health, education, raising children, being with children, relationships, like everything, work. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like super exciting, never ending. And that's why, so that's why we've got the summit. And, I feel absolutely natural, like running the summit, even as a doctor, not really in this space, but, I'm a mom anyway, right? So, I would love to know more of your story, because we kind of like only just touch on it. Like how the journey can look like as well. We had a little taster of, what you, and how you came into this, world. What was it like for Becca?
It's such a long thing now, because it started like maybe 40 years ago or plus. Because I grew up in Sweden, and in Sweden, school was always public. But we could also go to different kinds of schools like Waldorf. And my mom, she decided to put me in a Montessori school. So when I was 12, I had to, after my fantastic Montessori schooling, I had to start a conventional secondary school. And I just really collided with that system. And it turned me into this instant critical person, just critical of the school system, teaching, grades, homework. And that took me into becoming a teacher myself, because I wanted to change things. I wanted it to be different for others. But I realized it wasn't enough to just change stuff for my students. I wanted to change the whole system. And then I kind of really got burnt out, because it's impossible. The system almost has a life on its own. And it was like David and Goliath. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. Long story short, I moved to Mexico, had my kid in 2005, realized that I was not going to put him in an ordinary school system. Founded in 2009, together with some other families, Oaxaca City's first alternative school. And then a couple of years later, moved down to the coast where we're living now in Puerto Escondido, founded the second alternative school, realized it was still too authoritarian, too top down, and went rogue. Founded in 2016 Explora, which is an agile learning center. And it's built upon the principles of self-directed education. And 2020, just when the pandemic hit, we got to know each other, and you had come down here just, I guess, to visit. And then the pandemic hit, and you decided to move and to stay here with your family. And finally, I could just hand over the keys of Explora to you.
I had been running a center with a friend in New York, a learning center. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about burnout.
Yeah.
We both know that well. So then that's when we met.
Correct. I feel like burnout has its roots in misalignment, and that's the thing, and that's what we're trying to prevent happen to our kids. I mean, I see a lot of burnout, and there are, again, like onion layers to peel with it. I just did not realize, when I started, I was like, oh, this is just a 2-week thing, take some herbs, whatever. And I'm like, not even 2 years, 20, try 20, to really come out of the mindset. It's hard because we've been conditioned inside out from birth, from how we all were born into the world also, right?
Yeah.
The disconnection. Wow. Okay. Well, this has been like sort of, so eclectic in the direction. I think you guys will all have enough resources when you kind of dig around Becca and Sari's work. I hope you enjoyed this really eclectic kind of discussion that we've had as well, and had some light bulbs go off in your heads about it. At this point, I'm aware of time. Do we have last words. The people that are watching are parents. They're just parents who want more ease and joy in their family lives. They might be schooling or unschooling or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, right? Any parting shots that you would like to that are coming up right now for you?
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You can change your life. Like, the things that you want are possible. And we've just been very much programmed to believe they're not. And, sometimes follow some paths that were prescribed to us or for us. But like what you were saying, Cheryl, it's if something feels misaligned, like whether it's the way you're relating to your kids or your partners or health or whatever, you can change it.
Yeah.
And I think so much of what this journey has taught me, us, and the people that we support and co-create with is that we many of us have become disempowered in our lives. And so it's just about finding our power again and reclaiming that power. And for us, what's very important is, again, like centering relationship and, focusing that it's not so much important, like the job, the this, the that, like all the things, all the noise. What's important is like, who are we and how are we living? And are we living aligned to our values? And if there's something in that doesn't feel right, you can always change it.
Yeah, and I would say that centering relationship has so many benefits. And one is it creates really great self-esteem in children, which is very different from self-confidence. Self-esteem is knowing that you are enough, just by being you. You don't have to produce anything or create anything. You're good and you're loved just the way you are. And that is really the basis for anything you want to do in life, to have good self-esteem. And I would agree with you, Sally. It's like never ever too late, and it's never impossible. It requires courage, and courage requires to get really vulnerable. And it is in that vulnerability where I think that we find our unique, authentic selves, and that is what we need to share with our kids.
And it's being modeled. I mean, as we're, challenging ourselves to question and to do things differently, to forge a different path that was already set before us, then our kids are going to do the same, which is what we want them to do the same. Like we want our kids to be creative, entrepreneurial, like problem solvers, whatever. That's it. Like if we do it ourselves, it will be in their bones almost, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today. It's been so lovely, like getting to know you both, and I hope our audience also will begin to have a lovely journey exploring your offerings as well. So with that, I will say thank you for everyone's presence and listening today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.